This podcast is part of the Batman Universe Podcast Network, hosted by the BatmanUniverse.net. Check out everything related to Batman and the entire Bat family at the BatmanUniverse.net, including news and original content related to comics, movies, television, merchandise, video games, and more. Also, check out some of the other unique podcasts that TBU has to offer. Consider supporting this podcast by becoming a patron on Patreon. Even $1 can go a long way in supporting this content that you enjoy. Look for a link over at thebatmanuniverse.net to offer your support now. And now, on with the show.
I'm back, baby! I'm back!
The boys are back in town!
Why isn't anyone ever just whelmed?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 20 of Everyone Loves Young Justice podcast. I'm Rob, and Jay is here, but not in this intro. We'll explain. You know what's happening. This is just a punch-in to an episode that was previously recorded. But neither here nor there. This podcast is brought to you and hosted by the BatmanUniverse.net. You can find us on our social media apps at Twitter at ELYJ Podcast. You can find our Blogspot page at everyonelovesdrake.blogspot.com. That is my New Year's resolution, is to get that working, because I've been saying it for 3 months and I haven't updated it, but I will. You can find us on our updated Facebook page at facebook.com/ELYJpod. And you can email into the show at ELYJpodcast@yahoo.com. And if you listen on iTunes, please leave a review on the show. And in 2021, we are going to start reading those reviews on the show, and that helps spread the word of the show if you listen to our shows on Apple Podcasts. Like I said, I'm Rob, Jay is here, and Happy New Year, everyone. So, this episode that you're getting ready to hear, episode 20, again, was recorded in a long batch like Jay and I do, so we can kind of start banking some shows. Originally, this was supposed to come out in the last week of December, but I decided to take that spot for Everyone Loves the Drake and do one more anniversary show, and that was our Christmas episode, and we also had Stella in there from Batgirl to Oracle. So I decided, well, Everyone Loves Young Justice is just going to come back in the new year, so originally this was going to end our Brian Michael Bendis era of Young Justice in 2020, but fortunately, unfortunately, depending on how you're looking at it, you get one more Brian Michael Bendis show. And I can hear some people go, oh, and some other people are going, oh, but beyond this, we are going to be looking at, of course, the classic 1998 Young Justice, all of those issues. Jay and I will also be looking at the Young Justice animated series and also the tie-in comics, and then we'll be doing commentary tracks from the animated series and just any other Young Justice things that we come across, or who knows, maybe some of these Young Justice characters will pop up in other books, or maybe there'll be new team books after future states. So I won't ramble on too much longer. You're going to hear our conversation that actually concludes from the previous episode in episode 19 and continues on in episode 20. So without further ado, here are Jay and I discussing the final 3 issues of the Brian Michael Bendis era of Young Justice, issues 18, 19, and the final issue 20. So we will make it through this episode together, and I just keep telling myself it'll be on to greener pastures once we get through these 3 issues. So thank you if you've been sticking with us through the show. Don't worry, brighter sun is just around the corner. So sit back and listen to Jay and I discuss the final 3 issues of the 2019 and 2020 Brian Michael Bendis era of Young Justice.
Recognize Superboy B04.
So speaking of gas on the tank, there's enough gas in the tank for Spoiler's bike to ride up the side of the building a la Batman Forever, which was a nice little gag.
Yeah.
So this is Date Night Gets Dangerous for Spoiler and Drake. And again, I see the font for Drake as much as I do not like this costume. You have the classic Robin font D. Why was that D never the logo rather than that stupid crescent moon that constantly moves or just disappears from his outfit? I said I wasn't going to mention it again, but I really want to like this cover. I think the composition is cool. I like the way they're placed. This would be so poster worthy if he was in his Robin outfit. I'd be saying that is an awesome cover. I like it. But composition-wise, I think it looks really good. This is probably my favorite of the bunch of covers. I love seeing Spoiler and Tim together. I like that everything's got this purple and yellow in far as font and coloring. The W under the 18 is purple. I like this cover, and I like the fonts that they're using. As even Date Night is written kind of cool in a very kind of girly kind of way, because it's more of a spoiler book, which she was wonderful surprise that Bendis pulled her in while he's already pulling in 15 other characters as it is. But it was kind of cool to see Tim and Steph have a vehicle together. When he gets pulled in the multiverse, it's like, well, there's so much for Tim and Stephanie. So I'm happy the back half of the book that I at least get to see these 2 characters interact with each other. So what do you think of the cover for 18?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good cover. It's very dynamic. It's like you said, the composition's really cool, completely implausible, but still, fun, and which is what a comic cover should be. It should draw you into it, be like, I want to read what this is about. I mean, let's definitely knock some points because it's, the Drake costume. But, I mean, you can, spoiler alert, can kind of use it as a kind of a benchmark, if you will, that this is the last, hopefully, that we will ever have to see that costume ever again. Because that, I mean, we'll get into it a bit, but other than maybe 1 or 2 other little things, that is pretty much the entire point of this issue, is getting Tim back in the Robin costume.
Right. And speaking of other covers here, Derek Chu was the cover artist on the variant cover. Nothing overly flashy about it, just typical Groot pose. And of odd note, Tim's bow staff is green.
Yeah, that's weird.
why it's green. Cassie looks a little more anime, and so does Amethyst in that. So there were 2 noteworthy. Like, you could look at this whole entire cover and go, this is pretty much the issue, them going on battle. So I think issue 6, when this opens up, this is them making out in front of the Hall of Justice before, like, when he was recounting him getting, sucked into the timeline. So the cool, I guess. So I guess cool on my end, I'll see where you fall from it. That I liked that Bendis, I feel bad saying this, so please forgive Bendis if you're listening, that did homework to pull in, like, seeing Cluemaster, I'm like, are we just going to totally forget Batman Eternal ever happened? And I thought, all right, fine. That was a story that was, I guess, by itself from a New 52 era, that this now directly ties the Batman and Batman Robin Eternal back into it, that the Cluemaster faked his own death. So, again, this is kind of more of the same, like, oh, that was cool. I wish we could have kind of seen it rather than heard about it in a few little blurbs that when he's on the phone talking to, and that was the other thing, whoever the heck he's talking to, I feel like it should be important, but it's not, because I really don't know who it is to go, oh, he's alive. How is he alive? Oh, he faked his death and he wants his money back. okay. So as cool as I thought that was, I was quickly going, but you didn't set it up enough. This would have been, this could have been a nice plot thread going through a series of issues that could have led to, oh my gosh, the person behind this is Cluemaster, and then gone into an issue of how Cluemaster got out from being killed and how all that got set up. So as excited I was quickly disappointed in going, it's just another one of those things that I'm told I'm supposed to be kind of excited that Cluemaster is alive and back in the DC universe, but we're not going to give any real explanation because we still don't know what happened to Young Justice.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't necessarily dislike this issue. I think of the ones that we've at least covered so far tonight, I think this one definitely has the best self-contained story.
Yes, I will agree.
I like the fact that they at least addressed, I faked my death, rather than just, I guess Batman and Robin or Batman Eternal didn't happen. Okay. Considering, pretty much everyone else has kind of forgotten that happened, with storytelling wise in the DC universe, it wouldn't have taken me out of it if it had just been like, it's Cluemaster and we're never even going to mention that he's dead or supposed to be dead.
Right.
That wouldn't have taken me out of it because, if enough of Batman Eternal has kind of been pushed aside over the years since its publication that, just bringing back a, D-list Batman villain wouldn't exactly be the worst crime ever.
Right.
So, I didn't mind it. It had a lot of, the same problems we've had a lot, with the dialogue just being way too much, being a little cutesy and a little, twee every now and then, everything. But, it's nice seeing, Stephanie especially get her moment in the sun. Because, pretty sure you're on the same page. Like, I loved her Batgirl book.
Yes.
So it's nice seeing her kind of moving a little bit more toward a kind of, I hate to say self-defined, because she's still, as Batgirl, using a name that another character has used, but still becoming like her own hero, that she's actually becoming more than just, Robin's girlfriend, quote unquote. Yeah. Kind of regaining some of that agency that she had before the New 52 hit. So I really appreciate that. There's some fun action scenes in here. This is one of those issues where the change in artist is very jarring because it's Godlewski and Oeming. Yeah, Michael Avon Oeming. Which I said, before is I like Oeming's style a lot. I wish it does not mesh well with others. Like it needs to have a purpose, which for some of the issues that he did, earlier on in the series, at least, they split it between, okay, well, we know that, John Timms is doing the scenes on, Earth, and Michael Avon Oeming is doing the scenes on Skartaris, to at least differentiate, where we are geographically. Right. That makes sense. But here, it's just, I think he's just used for a flashback, but there's no purpose to switching the artist except to maybe give, Godlewski, some room to breathe so he didn't have to pen the entire issue.
Yeah, I kind of got that feeling from it. There's some cool moments that he does. DC, number your pages. Yeah. So it's right next to the Dark Knight's Metalverse end, new one-shot, where Spoiler is going across the rooftops in a series of paddles, and then she does this leap off the very end. I like that. That sequence is done really well. I like when they kind of do a building rooftop chase or something like that, and then they're writing the thought bubbles or the thought boxes, if you will, on the sides of the building, and they're kind of slanted, and you see the character move. That's a good efficient use of panel layout. But like you said, in the small little moments of you turn the page, now we're back to the main artist again. It's jarring. I still go back to the Forge, where you had three artists for page for page, and they were just doing it just because they're pages. So
what Jim Lee drawing Batman, starting to put a key in something, and then turn the page, and it's John Romita Jr. having Batman put the key in there. That was yeah, that definitely took me out of it way back in that book.
Well, and then some other little moments, like and I feel like everything is so brief, like the little moments where we get to breathe and there could be a story beat here. And again, it's supposed to be that moment of like, every time Young Justice gets back to like, okay, we're going to kind of not sort of break up, but we'll call each other when we need it. The next issue is like, hey, I need you. Hey, I need you. So seeing Superboy with the jacket off and in the black tee, I thought that's a cool moment, putting Connor back in that outfit, but it's just for the brief moment. So you can get all these characters back to their status quo to just turn around and then pull them right back into the story within a couple pages. I mean, I like how Connor stops, I about said Cassie, Stephanie yeah. stops her from, beating the tar out of her dad. And Tim says, hey, I brought him here to do the heavy lifting, Yeah. Which I thought was a nice little moment. But I want to segue into the next thing unless you have anything else to say before we turn the last couple pages.
No,
here.
I mean, it's just, like I said, this is almost a one-shot, just with let's see what's going on in Spoiler's life. And, it's fairly, I mean, I don't know if a tight story is the right word to use, especially with kind of the, just very loose dialogue that's throughout.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it reads well enough on its own that if, I'm not worrying about what they think about, just escaping from the multiverse or what's going on with Leviathan or, anything like that. It's just, I mean, like the cover says, it's, date night with Spoiler and her boyfriend and... and
very clever, sir.
And just them fighting crime together, and then having kind of a having some personal stakes with Spoiler in it. If I were a new reader, I probably would be incredibly lost.
Yeah,
but still, I mean, it was, I mean, definitely one of the more entertaining issues of the series.
Yeah, and I did like this, which was something that we were kind of wanting out of it. Like, give us a solo issue where we get a chance to breathe, and that's something I would think we were hoping for. Like, once we were back out of the multiverse, like, let's do an issue like this of Tim and Steph or Connor. Like, we got a couple of those, but some were better. Like the Jenny Hicks issue was pretty decent, and the sections of Teen Lanern's issue, but that was intermixed with a couple other things. But the big thing, and I hope I can find the sound bite, because if I can, I'm going to put it in there. You said that when Tim because we kind of knew that Tim was going to go back to being Robin. You said you hope that there's a reason why, or that what you really didn't want is the very thing that happened into this. We turn the page, and the very first thing that is said is Drake back to being Robin? I think Batman and Spoiler made him go back to being Robin. Don't bring it up. And then Bart does the whole thing of like, good, we don't have to do the intervention or whatever. So I was very happy to see the Drake go away.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is just, it just underlines everything. Like, okay, it's either we're wrapping up the series and somebody at DC says, all right, get Tim back in the Robin costume.
We got to put the toys back in the box.
Put everything back the way you had it. Or we're tired of getting the guff of what we've done to Tim Drake. Fine. Let's just get him back in the Robin costume, and whoever wants to do whatever with him later. So I'm very happy to have him back in here, but it was so unceremonious. And it was kind of the same way in reverse. Like, we did a whole episode of Tim becoming Drake, and even that was, he just put on this costume that we think Stephanie of Earth whatever gave to him for no reason other than his doppelganger was named Drake, so I had to change my name to Drake. But he didn't say change your costume, so I guess it's kind of it palindromes itself, if I'm saying that word right. He race card himself.
No, palindrome. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, because even though I did not like the costume change, did not like the name change, didn't like the lack of explanation for it, I would have at least been willing to see what they were going to do with it if they did anything with it. But they didn't do anything with it. Tim had no presence outside of this book. And even in the book, there wasn't enough of Tim doing anything for us to, really even care about any of these changes. So then once it goes back, it's like, yeah, I'm glad he's back, because I didn't want him to change to begin with. So now it just feels like, you were, holding something above my head for a while just to tease me. And now it's like, okay, I'm bored with this. So, here's your toy back.
Yeah.
And
it's the person that comes into the room and you're wearing your hat and they feel like they got to take your hat and try and give you your hat back. And after a while, you're like, fine, I don't care. Keep my stupid hat. And then once they realize you don't care about the hat, like, here you go, here's your hat back.
Yeah. Once they realize that, you're not bothered by them anymore, then, they do. It's, yeah, I mean, it felt like either just a mandate by DC, okay, well, now that this is wrapping up, nobody likes this idea, so we're just going to have you reverse it. But even then, it's one of those things that there are two tropes that'll come up tonight that I hate in comics. This is the first one. It's when the writer of a book kind of winks at the audience saying, oh, haha, we knew this was a bad idea. Isn't this so goofy and everything? But then still, doubles down and keeps doing it.
Right.
Yeah, I hate that. It's like in, the first X-Men movie. They had these leather costumes. It's like, okay, whatever. But then, they make, comments disparaging, yellow spandex and everything. It's like, okay, I would have bought the leather costumes if you didn't, make a cute meta reference to how silly comic book costumes are. Because now it just feels like you changed it because you didn't have the confidence in yourself to be able to do that. So this is kind of the same thing. It's like, oh, we know that you guys aren't going to like this idea. We're going to make fun of it in the story too. And then, now it's over. So he's back to Robin. You're welcome. It's like they never had the confidence to do anything with Drake. They just wanted to make a change, but then they realized everyone hated it and didn't have enough of a conviction with the change itself. So they took the first exit that they could get.
I'm going to quote my good friend Jay Oz when I say they tried to make fetch happen through the stick and the dog didn't go after the stick. And the dog was just like, meh.
Yeah.
So after you having thrown the stick, you've now retrieved it. You tried to spend 7 issues convincing me to go fetch, and I'm just turning and walking away and peeing on the tree. You're like, all right, fine. Let's go home. That's what you wanted to do to begin with.
That is an apt analogy.
Sorry, that just popped in my head. So the linguistic stylings of Rob Myers, everyone. So, what do you say? Let's go to 19.
That sounds fantastic.
Okay. Please, Rob, get us there quicker. So, this is the issue I have to say the least about. I feel like we've already done and sung this dance before. So, I'm trying to remember my issues. I think this is issue 3, 4, when we have that whole issue with Cassie trying to figure out who she is in the Pantheon and all that, the fight with Zeus. And now knowing when this issue comes out, I think maybe we actually knew this. Oh, by the way, Amethyst is still not in the book after 4 books. Amethyst is still not here, folks.
At least she's not on the cover.
Not on the cover. Yeah, she's on the cover, on the variant cover. So before I get into it, this cover, John Timms is doing it. It's okay. I have nothing really bad to say about it. It's just it's serviceable. Yeah. And I mean, no disrespect. Looks cool. It's on the cover. Hey, it's on the wall. Young Justice. Cool. Great. I'll pick it up.
Yeah, I like that crest, that kind of Wonder Woman shield crest that Cassie's standing on. That's really cool. And, she has a cool pose. I like the lasso of truth, just kind of whipping around all over the place. The translucent floating head in the background is just kind of Zordon-ish. So definite Power Ranger vibes there.
Aye.
Yeah, exactly. Where's Alpha 5? So let's talk about that, Rob. Who is the Alpha 5 of? Oh wait, it's Red Tornado. Duh. So anyway, I mean, it's an okay cover. It has some really strong points. Some, I wouldn't necessarily say weak points, but some just very. They're just generic that kind of drag it down a little.
The variant cover is by the wonderful Francis Manapul, and I want to like this cover because it is Francis Manapul, and I love his art, but it's just a bland cover. It's a group shot. Like, knowing that he's doing a cover, I was really excited to have a Francis Manapul cover with, Tim Drake as Robin. The Drake is not on a cover anymore, on a variant cover, and it's the high school yearbook photo. It's okay. Yeah,
it's cute. It's fun. I just realized Teen Lantern has a construct of a camera, which actually brings it up a little bit for me, just because, like, okay, that's, I get what they're doing with the, class photo aspect of it. But having her have the camera, it's like, okay, that's actually, kind of fun. It's nothing amazing, no. But, it's Francis Manapul. And, I've never seen the dude draw anything bad.
No.
Yeah, it's more just like, okay, that's cute, that's fun. It's not amazing, though. So,
right.
Yeah.
You can be the filler in for this. So this is slotting into right about a time frame. Like, we actually have, I don't know if John Romita Jr. is listed as a credit in this book, because his art does actually appear on page 2. This is when Superman outs himself, or is outed to the world, that he is both Clark Kent and Superman. So there's that John Romita Jr. Action Comics artwork that's in there, so I was kind of curious to see if he gets
What's really funny is, I don't know, because I wasn't necessarily following Superman much in the New 52, but I think that's actually a cover from the New 52 Superman comic.
Oh, dude, seriously.
Like, I'm pretty sure, because I've been reading Superman in Action Comics, like, pretty, faithfully ever since Rebirth. Like, I still pick those up, and I recognize this image.
So do I.
I don't recognize it recently, though, so I think it is several years old.
Boo on both accounts, then. Like, they even reference this in here through some of the spectators. This guy's name was Clark Kent, and all that stuff. And that you go clear back to the New 52. Wow.
Yeah, it's just, strange. To your point about him not getting a credit, they did that in the Superboy issue too, because they reused Doc Shaner and Victor Bogdanovich's.
That's right.
Like, entire pages, not even just a kind of a background Easter eggy kind of image. It was entire pages of their work that were reprinted in it.
Yeah,
they didn't get credit.
The biggest takeaway for this issue, I'm disappointed in this issue for a big reason, that this is issue 19 and there's one issue to go. This should have been a better 2-part story, and we got 2 single issues, actually 3 single issues with 18, 19, and 20, which, is something we were saying, like, oh, let's have a little moment here. So this has got to tell me that they were going, well, rather than starting a new story arc, we're just going to do these 3 things. But I would have liked 19 and 20 at least to have been tied together, telling a story, and we just kind of went backwards into the book, which is kind of what we've done the whole entire time, of dealing with Cassie and her grandfather Zeus, only to find out, oh, it's actually Poseidon that is, trying to challenge Cassie. So I wasn't really like jumping up and down about it. I was more excited, like, oh, good, we got it. Our first issue with Tim back as Robin again, and the team mostly stands around the table eating as she is telling the story. And then we get, some fight scenes, but to me, there's not a lot of major that happens here other than her standing up to her grandfather and basically saying, I don't need to be a part of this. And him telling her, then when you call out for us, we're not going to be there. And she's okay with her station in life, I guess, as you say. That's about all I have to say about 19. This is my right-click, copy-paste part of pretty much the same thing I've said before.
This is an issue where Cassie gets a super dope fire sword, fights giant sea monsters, and Poseidon, the lords of the murky depths. And Tim is back as Robin, yes, even for just a few pages. And still, I was so bored with this issue.
I know.
Like you said, it may have even been the second issue. I mean,
Yeah.
I know it was way early in the run. It might be 3 or 4. I'm almost positive it was issue 2, though, where it was like my complaint then was it felt like a bunch of B-plot side story scenes strung together to make one whole issue. And I mean, this feels a little more cohesive, like it actually has a progressive, like a story with progression to tell. But even then, I did not care at all about what happened. I did not care that Young Justice fought a giant sea monster.
No.
That's how dull this issue was.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there's so much. I mean, it's things that these characters have said to each other before, things that have been said to them before that we've already read in this series. It doesn't tell us anything new. I will say, just kind of flipping through the issue, because I honestly couldn't bring myself to read it again. Because I was like, I know what goes on. I know what they're doing, and I know that it didn't really hit me. I did think that the final standoff with her and Zeus was at least staged well. Where she says, if this be my end, then so be it. And he says, so be it. And she says, so be it. And then he, just backs off. I thought, that was a nice little beat. Again, one that wasn't earned, really, that I wasn't necessarily moved by, but I could at least appreciate it there. But still, for the penultimate issue of a series that honestly felt like it had been treading water for a long time, this, where they actually fight sea creatures, was literally treading water.
Yeah,
in more ways than one.
And you are right, it was issue 2, because I was pulling up the synopsis that I had written. And it says, if I can find it here, as she lands after her long discussion with her grandfather, of which she happens to be the almighty Zeus, he wants to have a relationship with his granddaughter, to which Cassie is quickly to point out they do not have one. So you're right. So he tries to tell her about the future of the Pantheon of the Gods. That's issue 2, and we've revisited this plot in about 18, 17 issues later.
But haven't really gotten any insight to that story in the intervening issues either.
Right.
In fact, I remember that being what annoyed me so much about that original issue, was that it's like we just got these characters back, and it feels like, there's not actually any forward progress with them. And that was my problem with the book early on, and even more so as it went on. That I was like, okay, this is how it's going to be.
Well, let's have it not be much longer. And issue 20, the final issue of, and I wonder, is this the final issue of Wonder Comics as a whole? Is the imprint, has it gone away, or is there, I'm trying to think, is Naomi still a thing and it's on hiatus at the moment?
I think that, I don't know if it's going to come back. They did the original 6 issues. I think Bendis called that like season 1. So there were at least plans to do a second run. I don't know if the Amethyst series ended and I just completely forgot how it ended because I read it, but I don't remember what happened. Or if maybe the final issue got delayed or something, or maybe I just missed it. But I'm trying to rack my brain here because, there's this. Dial H was, a maxi series.
I've got a poster, actually, I had hanging on the wall for a while till I covered it up with a Joker War poster because I thought, oh, Tim's on the cover. You had Dial H and, Wonder Twins.
Wonder Twins. I mean, that was a 12-issue maxi series, which those were fun. I liked both of those books. Mm-hmm. They didn't have, not in a bad way, they didn't have staying power because they were meant, I think, as 6-issue miniseries, but they were well received enough that they got a 12-issue order. So that was good. But, I mean, even then, they were finite in length and were meant to be that way. So, I mean, it wasn't supposed to carry the line or anything. It was just going to be, series that came with them. But yeah, I think this, unless they bring Naomi back at some point or maybe launch something, after Future State, that Jenny Hex one shot that comes out next month, that might be a Wonder Comics imprint. Yeah. Which, I mean, we're saying now, everyone, we're going to wait to read that to see if we're going to cover it. Not that we have anything against Jenny Hex. In fact, we both quite like the character. It just kind of depends upon, how much Young Justice is involved with the book. And also, I guess, kind of if we just kind of feel like it too, because it's our show and we can do what we want.
That is absolutely right. Before we get into it, I thought it was this issue where, maybe it is this one. Oh, and by the way, all the books we've covered, Amethyst finally makes her first appearance, now 5 issues into it, and she's just miraculously back with the team. But there was a line of dialogue that I think one of the characters was having, essentially to the camera about, and maybe it was in Bart's issue, and I just skipped over it as we were talking, but basically to us, the audience, of things just change, and you can accept change, and you can move on from it, and you can be maybe something greater. I'll have to go back through and find where that is while we're talking. But so issue 20's cover. Speaking of Naomi, she's front and center on this book, which annoys me for only because this is not her book, and she is the central focal point of this cover, which the cover layout is fine. I think it's a little wrong that Teen Lantern is struggling to get behind the $3.99 barcode sign there that you barely see her under.
Seriously.
Bart's armpit,
Especially
you've got,
considering this issue is mostly about her.
Yeah, this is mostly her issue. So I would have rather have seen her in that position for Naomi, since this is her thing. But you've got the Wonder Twins that are sandwiched in there, and they're not in this issue at all. You got the Dial H for Heroes. They're not in this issue at all.
I mean, other than the very last page.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. Right.
But yeah, I mean, to your point, they're there on the cover, but they're not in the issue.
Yeah. Now, this is, I'm going to use these words lightly, so don't slap me. This is the book that has felt the closest to the 1998 book in presentation and almost look, especially when we're getting a fan favorite character back. We're getting Red Tornado. Seeing him in here and getting the history lesson for the newer members, and I like how they are figured. Like Tim says, back in the day, don't ask me which day, Red Tornado was in charge of training us.
Yeah, that was a fun line.
I like that. This feels like this could have been issue 1 of the series. Them coming to the harbor. This feels more like the fan service. This is the end of the superhero movie where Batman is standing on top of the gargoyle and ready to fight an adventure for the next day, and I'm like, this was the issue where I was like, oh, okay, I think you set something up here that they're back in the harbor. We're going through all of these cool things, but by the end of the book, this just made me go, okay, if I really want to go back to the harbor, I can go back to 1998, and we can live there for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And we've got 54 issues to do all these things and to have all of the feels that I think this just underlines everything, that nothing is earned, and here are the images that you're supposed to like and love. And the book sure does look really good, but for an ending issue, it begins nowhere and ends nowhere, rather than leaving you off and going, now this is an adventure I would have wanted to start. If this is how issue 3 of this book ended, I might have been jumping up and down a lot more, going, oh, I can't wait. We're at the harbor. We've got all these new characters, and what crazy adventure can we have? Where it says never the end. And I feel bad saying this. I'm glad this is over.
I mean, you made some comments there that I didn't think about while I was reading it, but I definitely agree with. This would have been a good issue number 1 after the JLA World Without Grown-Ups miniseries that this book didn't get. You know, like, hey, here's these cool new characters that we just introduced. Let's actually bring them into the fold, take them to, Happy Harbor, and, just let's kick things off with a bang and start off Young Justice. But then instead we are ending Young Justice on an issue that, honestly, it left me feeling next to nothing, which was... I mean,
I was trying to sell it. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, to the point that it should have worked much better for me. I just like one of the best issues of the series, at least with that character's half of it, like you said earlier, was the Teen Lantern issue. That was all about Kelly.
Yeah, I loved that issue.
That was a genuinely great issue and a high point of the series. So getting to shine the focus on her again was great. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, nothing happens with anything. Like you said, it's fan service. It's bringing them to Mount Justice, which is like, oh, cool. It's having them encounter Red Tornado, which it should be. Oh, cool. But, I mean, it's just a whole bunch of nothing. And the second trope that I absolutely hate is, the issue starts now and then it goes back, earlier that day or 33 minutes ago. It's not that it can never work. It's just, it's used as a crutch more often than not.
And the series used it a lot.
Yeah, and not even this series. Like, so many comics use it all because it's almost like they don't feel like they have a compelling enough opening for the book, so they have to throw you into the middle of it, which, I mean, it's not even in media res, where you're just in the thick of things and you have to figure out what's going on as you go along. I mean, this is, we're going to tell you where things were and then back up to find out how it got there before we can move forward. And it's just, I mean, it's a tired trope that more often than not, I don't think works, just because I feel like it's lazy storytelling. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this, when you finally find out, what's causing, all of this ruckus, it's just kind of, okay, whatever. And, nothing really happened with this issue that, I mean, just because the series never lived up to the potential that it should have had. At least it got an ending, sort of, I guess. But even then, it's not a strong final issue. It was almost, this is where we wanted the series to actually start, but it's canceled, so we're just going to tack on a cliched never the end final, tag at the end, and then move on from there.
Yeah, we're covering... a 98 version. We've already had the fight with Red Tornado. I think that I really feel like Bendis went back to the original run and looked at it and said, hey, wouldn't this be a nice little button or a callback that Red Tornado attacks the boys and is attacking the team in this, and the character that the new character that I created gets to be the one that also kind of rubbed me the wrong way too. Not that I should be excited with, as much as I loved the Teen Lantern issue and we raved about that issue. Now I'm like, oh, it's got to be Teen Lantern, and now we got to bring John Stewart into it, where he was like, okay, I'm going to need that armor, I'm going to need that thing, and she's talking him out of it, and not to mention, like, I'm excited to see Red Tornado, but I'm like, I've already read this, and I think, like, to your point, you said we're bringing the feels back into the other thing that you wish that we would have done, and now we've just got to end it in this way. I would have liked to have seen a rebuilt Red Tornado and say, let's start your training, young sirs and lads or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, even, John Stewart's inclusion, it, hints at something, much more interesting than what we're getting here that, may or may not ever come to be. Because I'm curious to know, where her hacked power ring came from, and the story behind that, and why the Green Lantern. I mean, I know why the Green Lantern Corps wants it, but do they want it just because it's like bootleg tech, or do they know who created it, and they know that if they come looking for it, this young teenage girl isn't going to be able to stand her ground against them, and will possibly be
their downfall or something.
Yeah, exactly. So there's interesting stuff here. It's just it doesn't amount to much of anything, because it's just let's give my original character one more time in the spotlight, and then who knows when we'll see these characters again. And I mean, that's a sad note to leave it on, because really, who knows when we'll see most of these characters ever again.
I found the section I was looking for was in issue 17, and it was by The Flash and Impulse. And I'm just going to read this section because I think it really sums up. I think this is Bendis talking to us, or it could be Bendis and Walker, but this feels more like Bendis here. This is when they're running so they can have their talk. Says, I would live in the now. Bart says to what? Barry says, worrying about the past, stressing about all of the futures. The past is still fine when it needs you, but the present, if you don't pay attention to it, if you don't, I don't know. Really celebrate it. The moments get lost so quickly. And I'm going to skip a little section here. This is, it's part of being us. We're going to have to live with some of the stuff that we would really be better off not even knowing about. And I think that kind of underlines, like, Bendis is trying to say, well, that the past is all well and good, but I was trying to do something, new and different here, but you kept wanting to live in the past, so deal with it, but you guys never were really able to deal with it, so now it's over. Because you weren't living in the now. And I think that sometimes, I picked up my comic books this week, and we were talking about future state, and so that's the perpetual argument of comic book fans. Don't change anything, but do something new.
Yeah.
But don't do something new,
not something
and
too
wreck
new.
the past. Yeah, not too new. Give me something a little different, but don't. But I think in some cases it's like you want something new, so they just radically change everything. Where people are like, whoa, we wanted a new ingredient into the pie. Instead of making pie, you made lasagna. Yeah. Like you went from one extreme to the other. So I don't know if that's more of a meta way of wink, wink, nudge, like, hey, fans, I'm talking to you in this. Like, live in the now. Don't worry about the past, because you've got the 1998 books you can always go back to. But I think there's something, like, what's the old saying? If you don't respect or learn the past, you're doomed to repeat it.
Yeah, to repeat its failures or something like that. Yeah.
So that's kind of like my final words on this. Like, I love all of these characters, including the new ones. Like, I never really read Amethyst in anything, but now having read Amethyst in this, I go, that's probably not a really good representation of who Amethyst actually really is. And it makes me look going like, hey, I'm the Tim Drake guy. Reading Tim Drake in this, it's like a cardboard cutout. It looks like Tim Drake from afar, but when you turn him on his side, it's really thin. It's just the bullet point notes. In the back of a Secret Files issue. It's more of we just read 20 issues of a long data file that had some moments of like, oh yeah, I remember that thing, but there's no story there.
Yeah, I mean, there was really no depth to this series. It tried to have depth, but there really wasn't, because one of the 98 issues that we'll talk about in another episode or so, the thing is, even then, back in that series, when you had all these characters talking to each other and with each other, and the writer having to juggle different characters in one title, they still felt like they had distinct personalities, and it actually felt like they were a team working together, and it felt like that they were a team that cared about each other. I will say that I did get some feeling of the team caring about each other and enjoying each other's presence. A lot of that is because, and I'm not knocking physical affection or anything at all. I mean, I love hugs and actually showing physical affection as much as anyone, right. Genuinely. I mean, there was just a lot of that. Hey, let's have the characters say how much they missed each other and say how much they mean to each other, and show them like hugging and palling around, which is all well and good and everything, but even then, it just seems like they're more, it's like they're the buddies that you hang out with on the weekend, but you don't have a deeper relationship with. I didn't get that sense of anybody in this book, because I didn't get the sense that any of the characters were any deeper than what was there on the page either. Yeah.
And I think that's just the bigger, I hate to use the word disappointment, and I'm very happy that we're doing this show and talking about a group of characters that I hope the people that are listening to the show aren't going, I am tired of hearing these two guys complain about this book. And I'm like, I'm the same way. And I don't know how much revisit that I'll come back to. Like, I've got some of the covers on my wall, and I love the covers of these books, but that may be the only thing that I go back to. We're looking at these covers. I did buy the trade for the first 6 issues of that, because that's when I was still really jazzed about it. And we have, Pat Gleason on the book at that time. And just thinking in the 2-year span that we've been doing the show now, of going where we were, like Pat Gleason was on the book, and he's not even
with DC
anymore. So I feel like we've really drifted from where it's going. So the only thing I could say for at least myself, that I'm very excited where we're going to be going next, that it's like things are always so much better when you're into something that you're doing. Not that I wasn't before, but because I like these characters, I felt like we had to do this book, and I really wanted to, but I'm kind of glad that glad's the wrong word. I don't even know what to say. It went out on such, it didn't go out like a lion, it went out like a lamb. It was very quiet and just kind of done, but it does make me excited to go, oh man, I can't wait to get into the 98 book, where things are just gonna feel alive again. I think you'll hear it in our voices that we really like this stuff, and other little side conversations that Jay and I had of like, hey, we got this idea about doing a thing coming up that I didn't even think about till Jay mentioned it. So I'm excited that the show is still going forward, that we can kind of put this to bed and get to greener pastures. So that's kind of like my final thoughts. I don't regret buying this book, but I was very much teetering on, I really like the Tim Drake character, and this is the only book that he's in. and I'm really wavering dropping the book. And that was hurting my heart to be able to say that, like buying the book and going, I don't know how much longer I can continue to keep doing this. And then when it got canceled, I'm like, okay, I'm okay.
I know how much longer I can keep doing this.
Yeah, I know exactly. I can do it to the 20th issue, and that'll be fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's a book that started off, I was super excited when it was announced.
Yeah.
I jumped, like when you were like, hey, I might do a Young Justice show. And I mean, I didn't even think you would. I mean, I don't mean this like as a slight or anything, but, you know, I was just, I was meaning it like, hey, if you need a co-host and you really cannot find anybody, you know, I'd love to do it. And I didn't know if it would be, you know, entertained or not. So, I mean, at the very least, I'm glad that this, book got us to be able to do the show together and, you know, have fun, even talking about something that we weren't necessarily having fun reading for a while. But I mean, again, like we were saying before, you know, this at least re-energized us knowing that there was an end point to say, okay, we just got to get through this. And then we can go back to, you know, reading comics from, you know, the time that, you know, we both started falling in love with reading comics. I mean, you've been reading a little bit before that. And I mean, I'd been reading a little bit before that too, but still that was like, you know, almost the heyday of, at least for me personally, of when I first started getting into reading comics. So I love revisiting that era any chance I get. So yeah, like Rob said, hopefully you hear new enthusiasm in our voices and everything. And I mean, if this series, even if it wasn't actually a success, if it succeeded in bringing, you know, these characters back into the conversation of actually being in a book and leading to future books with each of these characters, maybe even a new Young Justice title, you know, in the next year or so with an actual direction and purpose. Yeah. Because it's not even Young Justice. There's so many books out there that feel like they exist just to capitalize on the name so that they can have that book being published, but it doesn't have any purpose beyond that. It's not just this series. So don't think that I'm only picking on this. And yeah, I mean, if you loved this series, I'm genuinely glad that you did. Right. I mean, you know, we're not here to tell you that, you know, if you dislike it, you're right, and if you like it, you're wrong, or vice versa. I mean, it's just our opinions, you know, that we're talking about. But I would not deride anybody or, you know, yuck on anybody's yum, as they say, just because I don't like it. If somebody else does, I'm genuinely glad that there is an audience for it, and you know, hopefully that there will be something that both audiences that, you know, I'm a part of and somebody who genuinely loved every issue of this book, you know, that we can love together sometime going forward.
And I've been on books that got canceled and been like, why did this book get canceled? This book was amazing. You know, I could probably rattle off, you know, half a dozen books or more that I was genuinely disappointed that the book came to an end and was like, couldn't believe it. And had talked to people that said they didn't like it. I'm like, are you crazy? This book was amazing. So I've been on that side of it too, been the one like left holding the bags. Like I bought everything and, you know, felt, you know, left out and cheated. So I can get that too, that I'm sure there are people that absolutely love this and that are huge fans of Bendis's work and can do no wrong. And this is the first full thing of Bendis that I've read, and I'm curious about other things that I've heard where people said, yeah, Young Justice might not be his best vehicle, but you ought to go check this out, you know, if you want to read some good Bendis stuff. So I'm glad that we did this, and I'm just talking off the cuff here if this will even be on the show or not, but I'm even thinking the theme song may change in the show. Maybe not the spoken words, but a new life and a new direction. That the name's not going to be changed because Dustin will kill me. But don't be surprised if the theme music changes ever so slightly. But unless you've got any final thoughts, I think this is where we're going to officially end the Bendis era and this episode of the show.
Yep, I got nothing else to add to that other than, you know, let's Let's take a look at the past now.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of anything more clever than that to say, so sorry.
Nope. So let's go back to the future. So on the behalf of Jay, this is Rob. You've been listening to the BatmanUniverse.net. And more importantly, you've been listening to Everyone Loves Young Justice. We'll see you on the next episode.